Hey people, I made some claims in this video yesterday, and I will let you know that all that still stands. But I'm the world's leading expert on ancient biblical Greek and Hebrew. Prove me wrong right there. So I was talking about this word Nephilim and looking at it in the Greek where they didn't use that word. And I just now looked back in the Latin to see what they said, and they use the same word as the Greek. You know, the antes that represents the gig for. The gig antes, the day represents. And I just caught this in the Latin. You know, I haven't been studying the Latin. I thought it was the hardest. But I found some stuff in here that's going to help better understand the Greek. It's very famous. And I noticed that reading the Greek has helped me learn to read this Latin better. And this isn't as much as super as in upper. In the upper terra, you know, it's talking about the other planets, upper terras, from the Indi Bacilli, from the Indian house. And you know, in that movie yesterday, I was talking about, it was talking about the Aryan and the Indian mix, and it was called the Sons of God, the Benali. And so there's a story in Corey's fragments of the Indian Arphaxad that come and taught them astrology 2 years after the flood. Arphaxad was born. But it says here it's the son of Shem. In that movie yesterday I was showing you where they said that the Hindu mixed with the son of Ham. But all these names they're not that anyway. And you see it right here. The sons, the Shem. And you can see it here in the Hebrew. You know, the Shem, it means the name. You know, the eldest son, the progenitor, to keep up the name. And so the major difference between this Greek and the Latin is this word here. This is and again it has on. You know, and it's not we're born, but and again. Again means read. It's where your word again comes from. You know, gentage is to again take. And this cataclysmon or tonka, to clues them on, the tonka. And it's different here. They left out the and the. It has suntage. And suntage is what's took. The sun took and has the suntage. And has the sun took the inner. And a ratty is R, is the red flag, the R flag, Romeo flag. The ratty ones is the old ratty ones. And I believe this is the representation of ratty. And they'll say it's another enter, a netter. And that's what it means, is enter at ratty. And you see the flag at a corn maze, at an entrance, you'll see flags. That's ratty. You know, ratty at the entrance. They always put the flags where they want you to come in. You know, they'll put it on top of the headquarters. And so that means more of, you know, the beginning, the ratty, the entrance. And so the generati ones, you know, is again to begin one. And has again the ratty ones, philorum, file, and the aura, the light from, to file the light from. Knows 'em come, it yap it, talking, running that mouth, and knows 'em come, it yap it. And so this is, and he gave birth. It's the nautic, and it's not necessarily birth, but it's where the stars are at birth, your nautical chart. It's where the nativity comes from. The nativity, they say, is your birth, and it means more about when you were born. The time, the nautic, where the stars are, under, sunt, under, where the nautics under, the skies under, his Philippus diluvium. And so a diluvium, you know, is, the yum is the day, and they're saying the day of the deluve, but it's the dial of day, and the dial of day, you know, the dial of the day. You know, your nautics, the night skies under his file, a post, the dial of the day. And so post, you know, this is what they say after the flood. But post, it doesn't mean after. If you look at your letter comes in, your post comes in, you look at the postmark, it's where you put your postage, the post to take postage. And so the postmark is from the origin of that letter, to the file of the origin, the dial of the day. And so it's putting the time in the same way that you would class life in the phylum. The post, that's what it shows, is the dial of the day, the post deliverum, the time. It's all having to do with time. You got the post and you got the sun, and sunt, T and D are the same, sunter, under, the sun and the sunt. If you put a plant in the shade, it's shunt. And, ash, the god, and has, H-E-S, his, he's sunt. Re-orations, file, orum, the file, light, nosum come, the nose, the names, to divide from, to make fit. Word that means acronyms. The names to divide from, make fit. The stars under his philopostdiluvium, to fill a post, dial of day. And so, when you think in a generation, it's not, a beginning of a birth, it's again, and has under again the rations, the filer, the file of the light from, the aurum. Nosum come, the yapit, the language of the nautics, the language of seamen, the language of astrologies, under his file, a post of the origin, die, to dissect, to divide, di, the dial of, dissects all the numbers around the dial, 1 to 10, the dial of day, the dial of them. And it looks like they twist a little bit to get the serpent out of in the Latin. But, if you go out every morning and every evening and get your two shadows, and throughout the year and chart it, what you'll see is this shadow will crawl like a snake, and it'll make one trip up and down. It's the serpents. And that's what this Vatican Square represents. You go get your shadow off of which post is telling the time. The post is telling the time. Except, this is the big keyhole, and it's turned the wrong way. It's like they got lazy now. They just want to know when the crossing happens, because it's set up due east, instead of the shadow come on in your window. But if in the cataclysm and the earth shifts 90 degrees, it'd be set up perfect after a time of deluge when everybody's power's out. They'll have an accurate clock and calendar set up. The big keyhole, it turns right here. If they found the right pivot point. Israel seems to think it's over there, but they don't read the ancient language so well. The nautics under his file, two eyes there, the file make post, the dial of day. And then when you look at the sun, the file, they say this is the son of Yapit, the file of Yapit. And then when it comes to Chem, it's a little different. It's the file, what them come, what's coming in the future, the file of what them come. And then down in Shem, it starts different, it's the name, the shame. The name, fuck you. And I think that means, you've been tagged. And so this sunt, they say it means under, but it doesn't really mean under. It means the sun and then mark. And so here it's, the naughty, the night. What do you do at night? Well, that's when you do your naughties. The naughties win. And the naughties, and the shame, fuck you, naughties win top. When naughties win top. When the night, the Egyptian word for the night is when top, So the shadow is, you're taking your time from the stars here. The shame, the name, a quo. I don't know how they put that together, but it's the fuck you is the wife. The name your wife, the match up to on the night is when top. And so a patter doesn't always mean father. It's when the shame fuck you night is when top at her. You're on top of her. Your father. But if is when mop at her, you might be the mother then when the mop at her. And the night is when top at her. Omnium. Omni is the great, and yum is the day. And it's of manyum. A cyclum keeps going around. And so what you're looking is, this just actually says God. The name of the fucking at is when top at her. And when you're on top fucking her, she's hollering, oh God. And so that's what this actually means. Oh God of the great day, the filerum. You file the love of light ever. For adder a yapit mayora. In the Greek, is, and the woman is the one who's gonna yak O's. The yapith, the name she's hollering. And my ore is gold. But ore, and major is the great. But mayora, my light, my aura is a peacock. And it was used to represent illusion. And that's what that name means, an illusion. And so this is what they say is brother, a frater. But anytime in the Hebrew it's talking about Shem, it's talking about naming something. And he called his name frater, and afferret her to, or affers them, and calls her name, and calls them if it allude. And so all these names, they're all to afferret if it allude. And it mean knows them, comet, the yapit. The knows, the yapit. And it's talking about an acronym. We all know NASA flies, but not everybody knows that that's the National Aeronautics in Space. But acronym, it has another meaning. The chronomatotus was the wisest one in the garden. But acrony is not wise. The chronomatotus. Or maybe it's the phony, the friendly, and not the friendliest. It's harder to understand. And so you can read on this through the story and call the names, but you don't know what the hell it means until you know what the names mean. And I'm going to run back into it somewhere here where it comes out and says that it uses the word acronym to nose 'em come the yapit. And philism is slam. The AE is ES, the slam is slam. And philism, the slam it ass where it are fix had its luditerum. This lamb, that's where your word slam come from. When you're on the lam, your hard times. Lam meaning hard, hit someone hard. The philism as slam it as where it are fax had its luditerum. And that would be an ancient Latin word for a casino, maybe. It's to a game, it's to lude, or to play, to deceive or trick, or to elude the game, the gameatarium. And so the name fuck you when at is on top of her, on top at her, has come to mean something vulgar in order to hide this language. And simply means, where the shadow was setting, where the mark was, on the great day of the philorium, to fill the light ever, for adder yapit mayora, illusion. Philism the slammet is where it are fixed had at the game eterium, eteluditerium. And so back to this Genesis 6 when it was talking about the giants here, and this very famous. And over here in the Greek, they interpret that word as renowned. And Anoma, that's a name in Greek and Egyptian, Anoma. The nome was the names of the cities, and Anoma stay, a name stay. And so these giants, is, the day represents. And so these were the biggest of the gods. They each had one of every 7 days. The gigantes, the day antes. The day for the Sezon epithages into his. And the rays. And a camera, that's that dome you see in all your state buildings. This dome, it's up in the Vatican, that's the camera. And it'll have all this artwork in there representing days, those days. And so, 2 is come the Ra, come the sun, the camera, is to make the shame to name the day. Name the day Selena's. And so it's not just any days, but it's the camera is come the ray, come the shine, Selena's. And Selena is the moon. The epithages into his come the ray Selena is omit. This is what you say was with, to omit, UMET, omit with, and EL, the Selena's to metal, the Selena's metal, silver, the metal they know as on the Sephiro, unto call the way it of the O's. The forced is together as ton, on thereupon we genius on, have to is, have to a Selena, call has on, the call, the day represents, the gigante, the jig for, the call, a pay on as, to pay Diane, the pay on has, and call on their oppo on the other side, and call a name stay. And then this next line, this is a dondi. A dondi, that's where in Spanish, Latin, a dondi. And where curious of those. And curious, the word curious comes from the study of the sedges, the study of sedges. And we're curious of those, ought of the pleating this on. And so they're getting this multiply, from complete, is to fill, and deplete is empty, and the pleat is the fold when this on. But over here in the Hebrew, this idondi, where curious of the O's, is where. That's where they get that dondi from. They knew this was where, and they forced the meaning where on dondi. And where you occur in here at, occur, where you occur in here at is a place of time. And that's why they'll tell you that Noah's Ark landed on Mount Ararat, because it was, the great wickedness where you occur in Iraq. And so they're getting this great wickedness from, in Hadam Barris. I've been embarrassed, Hadam Barris. And where you occur in here at embarrass, the great wickedness of man in the earth. Where you is embarrassed, a clixer, a KLIXR. And this XR, this is always the enemy, a clixer, the chiro, and much is but love. And whereof roll call, the roll call, a hyam, of the roll call of those that are high, the days, the yum. And so this is the roof. You'll see it on the second or third day, raphia. And the roof and the sun, and to call the day. But it was meant to be, the lover frocolium. The lover frocolium. Just a big old orgy, all together, evil all of the time. And had embarrass a clitzer much as but love. The clixer much as but love, where frocolium. And so this intent give me a clue. This means the itzer, the one with the X, the one that you want and the one you're attending for, the itzer. And in the clixer, where you have occur in here at, had embarrass, and clixer much as but love, where frocolium. But this adondia over here, this really isn't where. It's adon, to put on the curious of the osity, of the greatness, the osity. Adon, the curious of osity. The pletion this on. This is where your word completion, the complete, and this on. And it's where your word deplete, pleat, and complete. And it's where your word pleat come from. A pleat is a fold. That's where they're getting this multiply. Comes from the fold, the pleat. And the osity of the pleating this on and having completed. A kakaya iton. And what it looks like, this word's A-K-I-A. A-K-I-A. It looks like it's coming from a Hebrew word, read after a hyphen, and which would be a key, which would be here. And so the ache, the soreness here, is where the evils are. The ache, aka here, it's on. On thereupon, epithages. The perfect example, the fifth sedges. What's being written about. The epiths, that's, pithos are these old jars that were dominated by the serpents of time and other gods. The ones that were made famous. And so they'll force this upon all over beside where it says upon, O-P-O-N, and on thereupon, epithages. And past is, the past is. And dia through, and Noah, this is the Greek word for Noah here, through knowage. The dia through knowage, and your it-age, is what's left behind. Thy knowage in. The cardia isn't not the heart, but it is the heart, but it's the thick, the THK, the thicker through. The core through is usually where it's thicker. The thicker die, the thicker through. And yacht of. This is the double A reads this as a Y, the yacht of. And it's still a common word down here, somebody telling you what you need to be doing, well, yacht of. And yacht of ephemeral as the fit upon her. And yacht ephemeral as the fit upon her. They'll always find somewhere to stick that upon on this epi. That's not what it means. It means the fit. It changes up just parts of words. And through knottage, and thicker through yada, the femal as the fit upon her, passes to the shamer as, and passes to the shame, the namer as. And so the reason she got famous, renowned, anoma, is Ono. You know, Ono is six tits, six mastoi. And that would be these old renowned men over here, you know, the Helma, the Blood, the Goverum, Assurum, Old Mancy has 'em. The old Mancy has 'em. And six tits is the triple moon god, and named for magic and medicine from the Egyptian Heka. But it actually means catch. They read it backwards. You can see it up here. That it's, you know, the catch. The goddess of herbs, poisons, plants, graves, and necromancy, and romancing the dead. Or some see that as black magic. But mancy, you know, is to conjure it up. And the giver a sure from the old mancy has 'em. You know, that was the old very famous. And so after reading the Hebrew and the Greek, then I can get this Latin, you know. And the gigantes, the day forsatum. The day forsatum, a rants, the rants, upper terror, the upper terrum, you know, the upper earth, you know, above, super, above the earth. In die Basilius, and I think in Latin it would be there die. In Basilis, you know, is the church, the house, you know, in asyle is, you know, asylum, in your lone place. Of the post come inum ingress, you know, the time come inum ingress, to regress, you know, permission to enter, the ingresses. In astronomy, the entrance of the moon into the shadow of the earth, you know, the red moon, the ingress, or the sun's entrance into a sign. The post in ingress, the shadows coming into another post. The posts come inum ingresses. If we put that up beside the Hebrew here, we see, you know, in also after is in come a hurry. You know, that's where this post comes from. A hurry, the post, and come. And come a hurry, a hurricane as arrive. Post come inum, you know, ingress, to arrive. Arrives when. Ingresses when. Ingresses when it. And so this is the sons of God here. The Philidae, or the Palladi. The Palladi had Phyllis. And so this is the Benali. And that was the Benali astrology that marked the time at Pallades. You know, you see all their gods on his coin. You got Venus, the moon, Jupiter, Saturn, and the Pallades here. And so that may be the girl with six tits. But that was this choke point where all the planets passed through here when the book of Job was written in the old Indian astrology. This was the point at Easter when it was first written. And it was where the mark, you know, where all the planets started. It was the beginning line. It was the end and the beginning. And post come inum ingresses when it. And in the time to come inum ingresses. When it, the Palladi had file as home in them. The Palladi had file as home in them. You know, the filing in a line, file. And so that would be read as the Benalis. The Benali all been what? And the Benalis all the God is usually what they'll say. This is the God been what? And the Benalis all been what? Had 'em who willed. And the Pallades and the Benalis had file as home in them. You know, all been what? His file is home in them. All been what had them. And I'll ask you again, and ask you again, where when it is. 'Tis when it potent as. 'tis when it potent is, its potent is. Who yield Willem of Helma, the blood of the Governor, of the mighty men. And they bore children is Will Doolem. They were duly certified. And so this is the word they're getting, the government out of here, the mighty men. Will ask again where, when it. They tell you everything of the where and when you do the government. And again where, when it. Will ask again where in it, the mighty men, the blood of the Governor. Asserm the old Mancy has 'em, assure from old from. When 'tis is went, when it is went, when 'tis is went, when it is went, the potence, the importance from the owls. And so it is in it potence a seculo. They say this is an age, the age of very famous. And so everybody knows the story of Noah's Ark. So it is the age of very famous. From the old man sea has 'em. The old man sea. And so this sons of God, the Philae, the Pallades, are the Sunday. Sons of God, the Sunday. And so the sons of God had fillies home in them, bringing them on home. And they'll ask you again, wherein went it? Is it sunt? Is it under potence? So that sunt potence, under potential of an age of very famous. And so under potential, is to bleed, the blood, the bleeding of the Governor. And so it's the same as trying to compare the Greek to the Hebrew. This and come a hurricane, that was on the second line, and come a hurricane has arrived. That was more up in this first line. And the day on it is Sodom, the rant's upper to ram. The storm above is up here in this first line. So using totally different words. So you really can't try to translate any of these words in any of these three languages. They're all written different ways. It would be embarrassing for a poet to copy somebody else's book. Why would you copy a book? That book's already written. It's easier to learn a language. And so this top, in Fly from Juvies by Mimum, he's described them as many. And that will be coming down here to this very famous. When you're real famous, you up on stage and they're like maggots down there, the Fly from Juvies. So I'm getting pretty loaded up, but let me hit this word Nephilim before I go. It reads several different ways, and the way they get in the fall in here, the Nephilim and these terribles, when you're reading these lower marks, this is Honny. H-O, you get an H-A here, but this line's the O. Dots and dashes. In the Morse code, the O is the dashes. And this dot under the P, they say that this is the I. This is the I under here, the I-Y. And this is the A. And you see they say Nephilim means the fallen, F-A-L. So these two dots underneath here are A, I's. And so H-O-N-N-Y, the honey. And then the honey pal aim. The honey pal aim is what you're striving for, what you're aiming at. But when you read it with the upper markings, these two marks up top, have you read this 2 more times, these 4 letters. After you read through, you come back and read this 2 more times. And it's, in Falum, in the felon. And they're felons, they're criminals. In Falum and felon, flee, to run. In Falum and felon, flee. And so, in fly, the fly from, and the fall, and the pull, they all come from the base word, come from this PL. The nipple, that's what that is. You pull on the nipple when you milking your cow. In pull. This is where you pull. In pull. But all that gets real confusing. But yeah, there's more stories here. But lately I just been reading the story off the top. The way that people could read. We're reading. Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. I got word Friday that my place might have sold. So I might be having to move the next several months. And I've been working on this one for a while. And I'm going to go ahead and post it without looking over it here. And I'll tell you if I find any mistakes. I'll watch it after I post it. Alright, good day.